Hello. So, chapter 3 of Black is the Body is called Interstates, and it is about her relationship with her husband, John, who's white, and she's black. So, they're an interracial couple. A lot of the stories relate to her family's interactions with her husband, and how they kind of viewed him. In the second story, they talked a lot about how John loves to eat and her mom loves to cook, and so that was something they bonded over. And then, it was just really interesting. She had about 10 stories about her husband, John, but the stories weren't about John. The stories were about other people's reaction to the fact that John's white and she's black and all that. But one of my favorite ones was the line where he's like, all black people say like they ain't done something in a minute, and they could mean a literal minute, or they could have meant several years, and that was funny. But it's also interesting because like John is being introduced to this new lingo, this new way of like speaking, and this new common phrase that he's probably never like seen before, heard before, and he's really embraced it, and he's really been an advocacy for it. Another part that I found very interesting in her story was about how she says that when she was very early on in the relationship, she was afraid to hold his hand in public, and she was particularly afraid of how other black people would view her. And I can tell you that this is very true in this case, and it's tough. It's very, like, a lot of black people tend to be judgmental about it because they view it as selling out a lot of the time. I felt her storytelling was very effective. Dr. Bernard does a great job of, while jumping around in the story, still making the story feel coherent. And this is another excellent example of that. We have this timeline, and I don't know if the stories are necessarily in order, but there's never a point where I'm confused where they are in the relationship or where she is and how she feels about him. And I feel like each story served its purpose in showing us, the audience, how John and her interacted with the world around them and how it was growing and changing. And the last story talks about how, they've been married for a while and her mom dies, and John was just supporting her, and how in that moment it feels like John wasn't a white man with his black wife, just he was a husband with his wife supporting them. My roommate just walked in. Hey, Jonathan. Uh, and so that was very interesting to read and interesting to hear. But I feel like one of Emily Bernard's biggest strengths in storytelling, especially in this story, is the idea of. Are you looking for something? Okay. Is that she can't can make it seem like very vivid. It feels like I'm almost there in the story. Like when they're talking about being in the car ride, like I can almost feel like I'm in the back seat, looking in, seeing them like driving around, doing these things, or when they're at the plant, not the plantation, but like the old plantation, and the cousin like ruined it with all this junk everywhere, and they're under the gazebo talking about how there's just stuff everywhere. Like it feels there, like you like she's a very vivid storyteller. She paints an excellent picture, and I think that's very effective storytelling. I feel like just having a linear story makes it feel more mundane and predictable. But Emily Bernard's storytelling, where it's sporadic and it's all over the place, but still being coherent, makes for a very engaging story, and it makes it feel more like less like the whole Fern Tags little like up and down triangle thing, because it feels like it's all over the place, and it feels like there are multiple stories that tie into one giant story, and it feels a lot more alive. Like this isn't just a story she's telling us, like this is her life, and life is sporadic, life is crazy, life isn't just like this linear thing that we exist on. And I think Emily Bernard so far has really captured that. I'm really enjoying the piece because of that. Overall, I feel like she did a fantastic job, especially as like growing up in a multiracial home. Like a lot of people talk about multiracial relationships who aren't in it, and I feel like she really, like, the part that really made me realize like she nailed it on the head is when she said like interracial couples who ignore the fact that they're interracial are humorless. And like, yeah, that was like something my parents talked about all the time. Like my mom's white and my dad's black. One time, my mom got pulled over and like the cop let her off with a warning, and she looked at me and she said, "Oh, but if your dad was driving, like we probably would have had to go bail him out of jail." And like we laughed about it, and like admittedly, like those things are funny. Like being in a relationship is like it's like funny, you know. It's tough to, but I really think having that humor element that Emily Bernard is talking about is important in those things. And I'm really glad that someone was able to finally kind of understand that. And I don't know, I really liked it. So, yeah, that's chapter 3 of Black is the Body. Thank you.